In this short video, we're going to show office-based staff that perhaps aren't responsible for going out and completing the inventory, but are in fact responsible for dealing with the approval of paperwork and so on and so forth. So once logging into the system, there is a section in there for properties, the property section. So that's where all the property reports are housed. So here we have an example house, and there is a pending submission icon against this particular property, which symbolises obviously that this report hasn't yet been triggered out for approval. So if you click on the address itself, it will then reveal any tenants or reports housed within that property. So here we have the tenant, Tom Jones. We have a check-in inventory report, which is showing with a grey background, and it says the status is it's a draft report. So it hasn't yet been submitted. So if I click on the cog icon next to that, it then gives me a couple of options. I can preview the report and I can continue the report. So the best thing to do is go for continue report, because that then takes you through into the overview screen. Because there could be instances, and in particular these two at the bottom here, we have the tenant details and signatures and approval. It could be that the inventory clerk has gone out, completed the report, and they maybe didn't have the tenant's details. So you might see that these are showing us, rather than showing in green as completed, it might say they're partly completed or even to do. So, but if you want to go in and check over that information before sending it out, you can click on the tenant details and it will then show the tenant's name, phone number, email address. Now you don't need to put in a phone number. That's not a mandatory field. However, and the same applies with the email address, but of course if you wish to use our inventory sign process, then we would recommend obviously you need to do that. You need to put an email address in for that particular tenant. So as we can see, that information is already populated on my screen, so I'm going to hit save on that. And then just underneath that, we then have another option that says signatures and approval. So if I click on that, it then gives me some options, and so some of the questions are quite straightforward and will have already been populated by the inventory clerk. So the first question is, was the tenant present during the inspection? The second question is, would you like to obtain the tenant's signature now? So if they were in your presence, we have some users that get them to sign the iPad itself, or iPhone, or the tablet device that's being used. Underneath that, we then have a question that says, would you like to send an electronic copy to the tenant for paperless approval using inventory sign? Now, if you say no to that question, in a moment when you submit the report, you still get to preview the report before you submit it. But when you do submit it, it will create a PDF for you instantly that you will have a blank signature box for the tenant or tenants to sign. Now, in this occasion, I'm going to say actually, yes, I would like to send it electronically. So obviously that doesn't create an instant PDF, because what happens then is the report gets sent out to the tenant, so it then gets locked down, so you can't access it while it's in the tenant's presence. I'll mention more about that in a second. So I've said yes, I want to send it electronically. It's then revealed the tenant's name and email address for me to check over. When I'm happy with that, I can then hit done. And then it comes up and shows me the preview and submit option. So if I click on preview and submit, it will then show me a preview of the report itself. So I can scroll through, see the contents of my report, make sure that I'm happy with it before I hit the submit report button. So I'm going to hit submit to that now. Let's just assume that I'm happy with everything. It then comes up and tells me what will happen next with this report. So the most important step is not to hand over the keys until the tenant has confirmed safe receipt of their report. So the tenant gets an email with two simple steps to follow. The first step is for them to sign on their phone or desktop computer or tablet to say, yes, I confirm I have received my report. So that's not them approving it necessarily at this stage, but once we have that signature, there is never a time in which we won't have a signed inventory from the way that the approval cycle works. The second step, of course, is after they've moved into the property, they can then choose to feedback on the report if they have any issues. Now, you can actually control how long the tenant has, the window of time in which they have to respond to step 2, and that is accessible in the settings area. So we can change that down from between 2 to 7 days. So you can control how long they have on that side of things. So I'm just going to hit done after, let's just assume I've read that screen, and as you can see, the status of this report is now showing in a cream colour. So previously it was grey as draft, but now it's telling me that it's out and we're awaiting the tenant's signature. If you want to understand the different report statuses, there is a helpful article in our help section in the bottom right, and if you type in the words view report, it will reveal an article to you and show you it's this top one here, number 1, where it says when can I view and print my report. So in here we can then see all the different statuses. So it describes what it means by an inventory that's in a draft state. It shows us what we mean by an inventory that's awaiting a tenant's signature. It gives us a full overview of the different types of statuses that we have pending. Another thing perhaps worth highlighting as well is if you've got perhaps a number of reports out with tenants or awaiting responses, you can actually filter from the filter tool and identify any reports that are perhaps pending submission just by clicking these boxes here, and it will filter through reports that have different statuses at hand. Okay, so there we have a video on how admin staff can obtain approval and manage the process.